Well, it's great to see everybody in person. I know it's been a while since we've had a chance to meet, so I think, to be honest, let's just jump in. Let's catch up. So I'm sure you have a lot to talk about. So it's great to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing well, making it through this thing. So, all right,
This is
David.
probably the first time you've done in person since the combine, right?
Well, that's what Rich and I were talking. It's been over a year. So I mean, I don't know how I was so blessed not to be able to do a live press conference in over a year, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, you think of the combine, that's really obviously my favorite part of the combine is meeting with the media, and definitely down at the owners' meeting too. So yeah, but yeah, it's been a long time. As you know, lots going on. So we're excited to really to get going. You know, and in a lot of ways, this our off season still has a feel of some first year components to it. So we're working through that. We're preparing for a virtual off season because we haven't really been given clear guidelines yet, from the league office. So, but a lot going on. We have a lot of players here going through the rehab, and a lot of excitement, and obviously change and adjustments have obviously gone on since the season concluded, and we're looking to continue the flow of that, and really emphasize on the things that we were able to accomplish this past year.
With where you are in free agency at this point, do you feel you've gotten some guys who can step in and start from you from day one, or has this been more about just creating some competition and covering yourself going into the draft so you can have more of a pure draft?
I mean, philosophically, whether it's a 90-man roster or an 80-man roster, hope to God they stay with the 90. You want as much competition as possible. I mean, I think it's a mistake that has been made over time where you try to control your 53 who's on your 90, and I think it can really backfire on you. That's obviously not our philosophy. So the most competitive 90-man roster, and obviously the biggest chunk of that comes from the draft class. I think when you look at draft class, I know my history in roster development. You're looking at 18 to 22% of your roster yearly is changed through the draft class. So, that those numbers are clear. They always are to me, because as I'm looking how you're going to train a team, from March, April, May, June, going into training camp, that's it's a big part of your thinking. So, when I look at the free agent class, it's no different. I look at the young roster, and I look at the veterans, and the challenge for every head coach is, that gap has to come together, and the sooner it does, that's when you're able to play quality football. So the best environment climate that you can create is to have a competitive 90-man roster. So we want to be as fluid as we can. Clearly through free agency, we're still involved in looking and talking, and especially now where our draft analysis and the laps that we're taking through the draft class, whether it's the second lap, and got individual workouts going on right now, so you're getting that information, and as we know, what's going on with the draft is this year's unprecedented, just because you don't have access to that you've had in the past. So as we're evaluating the draft class and fluent with free agency, this is a long answer for how to develop a competitive 90-man roster. So.
We heard from Stephen Jones last week, or when Dak signed his new deal, about an emphasis on defense, both in free agency and the draft. Now that you've had some time to look back, can you put your hand on what went wrong with defense last year, and how are you guys looking to change that and move forward, and maybe some of your input that you had in the signing of Dan Quinn and those guys coming to Dallas?
Well, I think it's clearly when you look at our team from 2020 to 2021, the largest change is clearly on defense. I mean, that's something that we felt was needed. I don't want to say across the board, but that was. It's clearly not my vision of the football team, and how I see a football team competing to be consistent, because consistency puts you in place to win championships. I clearly understand the excitement and the optimism each and every year of every NFL team, but the efficiency and consistency of how you operate and how you practice, how you build a 90-man roster, all those things, that all plays into being consistent, because the only way to get there is to be knocking on the door each and every week, each and every day. So, yeah, defense was clearly, at day one of the evaluation process, because really the day after the season was over, having time to go through the exit interviews. The exit interviews were, we only got halfway through them because we had a COVID situation with the younger players, but going through all the coaches. But the focus of change would definitely be on the defense. So obviously with the change in the coordinator and the coaches, we feel the direction that where I see the team needs to goes is going to come under leadership of Dan Quinn. I've known Dan for quite some time, and having a chance to be in position to hire him is definitely an asset, huge asset to our football operations. So, and schematically to the naked eye or layman's terms, I mean, I don't think we'll see a whole lot because I think it's important to build off of what we did accomplish there probably the second 8 weeks, our ability to take the ball away. And there was probably some conceptual things that I felt like our players really understood and played fast with, which wasn't evident in the first 8 weeks. So we're not throwing, this isn't a start over situation. We're able to build off of some of the things we accomplished last year. So that's definitely was part of my thinking. And the opportunity to hire Dan, and I really like the way the staff has come together. It's the energy and enthusiasm. I think the diversity of some of the assistants. So it's an opportunity for improvement, and I think we're definitely on the right path there. And then you go to the players. I mean, obviously, you're seeing some roster changes, and that'll continue all the way through the free agency process, the draft process, and then you have the other free agent pool that comes after the draft. And so I mean it's never quite over, but I think it's obvious that my primary focus has been the defense.
They have a particular defense in Atlanta and Seattle. Will you go to that here?
Well, I mean, if you look at the way they played in Seattle and in Atlanta, from my view, it is different. You'll see the schemes, the ability to play. I don't want to say this the right way, because I mean so much gets made about the 3-4 and 4-3. It's really not about that. It's more about the techniques that fit the players and their ability to play. We are player over scheme. I've always been that way, and I think it's part of my experience of coaching a very young team year in year out in my past experience. But if you have a system of offense, defense, or special teams that can accommodate an excellent football player, in general terms, I think you have to take a hard look at your system. So, the ability to have the 3-4 components to it and the 4-3 components based on how you view what that is, but it's more about the techniques and the alignments, assignments that in the front that we'll ask our guys to play. You'll see both those components where it's not a whole lot different. What I think what Mike was trying to get to, last year. So so there'll be a tighter blend of that. So I mean, I think clearly, I'm standing here now compared to when I was standing here last year. The understanding of the players that we do have, and their strengths, and how we want to continue to play to it, plus the players that we added. I think you can see the common theme of the players we've added in the front. I mean, you're seeing players with more length and the different body type, because in my view, just in general terms, you can't have enough 6'4", 6'5", 255, 260-pound athletes on your football team. So it makes you better on offense, defense, and special teams.
Coach, what was your reaction when the Dak deal was done, one? And two, how much better or how much more can he improve having an entire offseason to work with you and to work in the system?
Well, I mean, I was actually I was in Florida when the deal was finally completed. It's a lot easier to do cartwheels on the sand, I'd say that. Rich is having a hell of a visual over there right now, but I was obviously very excited. I think that he is definitely the keystone of moving forward as a football team. So I was very excited about that, and he was just finishing up his workout out on the field, as I walked in here. So he's making progress, and he's on course, and yeah, I'm excited about year two of the offense because, frankly, in a lot of ways, we feel like we didn't really get to have year one. So we're excited about what we can do this year with a healthy offense.
Mike, Dak talked last week about wanting to instill the culture right from the beginning. Last season, you didn't have the opportunity to meet, or last offseason, you didn't have the opportunity to meet with him early between the contract and COVID. What do you want to do with him now in this offseason to make sure that y'all are on the same page and can project that to the rest of the team?
Well, we have a lot of ideas, but until we know the schedule, we don't know exactly how we're going to go about it. So we're in a visual or virtual mindset, and how that's going to look. That's to be determined. But Dak lives here, so I mean he's here every day. So we need interaction. That's really, everybody keeps saying, well, hey, coach, what do you need? We need time with our players, and our players want time with the coaches. So we have a great vibe going on. I love the way the locker room is put together. Every year you go through changes, and some are a lot harder than others. But Dak he's the keystone of this football team, and that's the way I view it, and that's the way we're going to push forward with it too. Because the quarterback touches the ball every play. But also his presence and his natural leadership ability is something that will continue to grow, and I think you'll see that. I think you'll see that in the locker room.
You mentioned earlier the difference between a 90-man roster and an 80-man roster. What is the value of those 10 extra roster spots to how the competition looks like going into the final roster, and also how you script a practice and run a practice?
Well, I think you've said a competition, number one, but also I think it's a better training environment. You can work. There's certain positions in an OTA off-season phase that because they're helmets and shorts, so you want to have more perimeter players. So no different when you get into the padded work. So the ability to train a whole football team is definitely different at 80 than it is 90. I mean, it's just the numbers reflect that. Because you really measure every rep. I mean, you measure every rep of when your big players are involved in team periods, in pads, how that measures, all those things factor. It's just the way I've always done it. So in 80 to 90 is it's a bigger change than you think it is, particularly when you get to the legs of the receivers and the DBs, and you're doing more 2-minute drills, you're doing more situational work, you're working more last 8, more third down, more pressure periods, so there's more stress at certain positions, and you need that in your training environment. You definitely need it in year 1, year 2 of this is whatever year you want to call this in a new program. So the 90-man roster I think is imperative to the development of your football team, especially for the teams that are that are new coming off this pandemic year. I think, and I've been on both sides of it. And when I'm referring to this past season, definitely tilted the field just a little bit to the experienced team, and I can say that from experience because 2010 I was part of a Super Bowl championship team that went into a lockout that didn't have no off-season program and walked out of lockout, went 15-1. So, and it was an advantage because we'd been together, same team for a couple of years, and didn't have much change. And so now being on the flip side of that, it goes back to my point earlier. We just need time with our players. So, and having 90 players definitely would be a benefit over 80.
What role do you envision for Keanu Neal, and what have you and Dan talked about how he'll be used and what he can bring to this defense?
Well, when you look at the way he's played Minnesota and Detroit, it's definitely his ability to cover tight end. It jumps off the film at you, and then when you see him in person, I mean he's a lot taller and longer than you think he is. It's embarrassing when you hug another man and you feel like he just swallows you up. So, but that's a tough task, where I am right now. So, anyways, but he's a long athletic guy. I mean, I tell you, he's impressive. I've had a chance to coach against him in the NFC North, and I think he's a great fit for us. I mean, he's going to make us better on defense with matchup ability and definitely on special teams. So, and I had a great visit with him yesterday. I was excited to see him sign right away. There was actually all of the guys that were in yesterday were all great visits.
Dak said something interesting in his news conference about how the injury might affect his decisions in terms of moving around, and he basically said, you know, he needs to be a little bit smarter. What's your take on a quarterback maybe trying to change what comes naturally to him to try to protect himself like that?
I mean, from my personal experience, I think the way the league plays today, you know, I think it makes it a little easier. I think in the '90s it was a bigger challenge. So I think that the quarterbacks are clearly protected more. You know, that's why I think you see the wide open offenses, you know, with the running of the quarterback, and you see that advance. So I don't think it's going to be a huge adjustment for him. You know, I don't think he needs to be lowering his shoulder and stiff arming maybe as much. I mean, Jerry probably wants him to run out of bounds every play, but you know, I think he just got to, you know, he's got to be just a little more mindful of it. You don't want to ever tell a player, if a coach, you know, this is something I think, but I don't ever try to make a statement to a player that may make him hesitate, you know, because, you know, hesitation in the NFL is, you know, you're a full step slower than your opponent, and that could potentially put you in a worse position.
How different does this feel for you now, being a year with the organization? Does it feel any different, or is it the same as when you were in Green Bay?
No, it feels a lot different. You know, I have a great appreciation for the people that I work with. I think it's a normal process you go through. And I'm talking about the everyday people, and especially for what we've gone through. I mean, my gosh, I mean, you think about the way it started. I think it was St. Patty's Day last year. It was the day that was kind of everything was shut down, and then we all kind of, you know, went to a virtual format, and so and really we didn't really get back together until training camp. So just to see that, you know, the personal sacrifice that, you know, that we all make, you know, particularly as coaches, you know, but you see the sacrifices that the families have made, and, you know, we were away from our families a lot more than normal, and once the season started. So yeah, just to be able to connect with the people that I work with every day is, you know, definitely is a lot different. But in some ways it does. It still feels kind of brand new, because, you know, there's some normal activities like being here today that you just haven't done a whole lot of, you know, over the last year.
Admittedly, last year was a tough year. What is the one thing you wish you would have done differently?
Well, there's always things you wish you would do differently, or, you know, I believe in filters in life, you know, where you evaluate your life, and they're, you know, personal and professional. I think self-reflection and evaluation is critical to growth. I mean, I'm not trying to give a speech here, but that's just the way I operate. So I think changes that we've made, I think they're obvious with, you know, the changes that I've made so far, and I think you'll see some adjustments whether you recognize them or not. They're going to be adjustments because we're going to practice and train a whole differently than we ever before. So I'm trying to, as I'm filibustering here, I'm trying to think of one specific to give you a great quote. Don't have one, sorry.
Given some of the challenges on defense last year, it was my understanding that players weren't necessarily graded out as much, or they didn't feel like they were getting taught the way that perhaps a lot of people have felt Dan Quinn has been described as a teacher. Was it as easy for you to get involved with defense given all the challenges you had going through 4 quarterbacks and the offensive line? Is that something that you'll be able to do a little better job of this year, or with the hiring of Dan Quinn, don't feel like that'll be something that you need to focus on?
Well, I think the most important part of this is, you know, I 100% disagree with your opinion. I think part of the challenge last year, and everybody went through it, all the first-year staffs went through it. You know, we tried to change too much on defense, if we're looking for a mistake. And I don't think it's a mistake. We didn't get it done. So, and that's just, you know, we went in with too much volume, but this was all part of the direction that you know, Jerry and Steve and I, when we sat down, we felt that this football team, the direction it needed to go. So, so there was definitely some miss on the understanding of, you know, what fits and what didn't fit, and you can never really truly find it out until you go through it. So, was our projection off? Yes, definitely was in some areas. The way they were taught, you know, we were changing facilities, and there's a number of things. I do not like the way our coaching operation is right now. I think it's not to my standard, but a lot of that was due to the COVID, the situation, the way that the Phillies, you know, adjusted, and you have, video wasn't challenged and everybody went through it. So, how much time you walked through, how much you didn't walk through, how much did you meet, all those things. I mean, that's all part of your training regimen. And so we didn't hit the target, but in the same breath, it's not just one guy. I mean, we all need to be better, players, coaches, head coach, all the way through. But the reality of it is the way we were evaluated and that part's, I mean, every player's grade. We have an extensive grading system here that's frankly still development because of the computer program development component of it that, but tier one, so only certain people were here. So, I mean, all those things are part that I think any coach goes into. We didn't just walk in and, change the date on the reports that the old staff used. We didn't just change the plays on what the old staff did. That's not what I was brought here to do. So I have a lot of work to do. The way the players are graded, I would put it up against any program I've ever been a part of in my time in the league. So, but
So assignment, alignment, effort, all that was graded last year?
absolutely, every play of every practice, of every play of every game. It's nonsense to think it wasn't. I mean, that's what coaches do.
I was told differently, so that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity to address that.
Well, I think I kindly disagreed 100% with your opinion.
Fair enough.
Or your
Again, it's not an
comment.
opinion, it's just, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address that.
Well done.
Mike, on that subject, now you gotta do it again with some virtual, a new system. Do you try to put less in? Is that one of the lessons learned from last year?
No, we need to do a better job in the virtual component of it. We've actually spent a ton of time. DV Sport was in here last week for 4 days. We've had seminar, sit downs with PFF. Just some of the outsourcing, analytics and things that we've done. We need to be better. We need to be better. We've looked at what we did last year. We looked at how we're going to do it this year. We're better prepared for it. I mean, we're anticipating it, better. I think we clearly have a better handle on the volume. I mean, we'll do less on offense too. I mean, this is not just a defensive focus. It's not just a special teams focus. It's all the way through. So, yeah, I'm very confident that our virtual operation will be significantly better.
Mike, can you give us an update on your offensive tackles, Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins? What's your comfortability right now?
I mean, they look great. I've had to, obviously Tyron went through training camp, so obviously I have a good, good feel for him. LC, he was just out there with Dak, so he looks like he's, close to being ready to go. So, and I can say that about all the veteran injured players. I mean, there's, unless a guy went out of town for an extended weekend, or I can't recall a day that they haven't been here. So, I mean, that part's been very regular. Those guys they all look good. So, I mean, we don't expect any setbacks.
Can you talk about your assessment of Jalen Smith last year, and do you feel like this new scheme can kind of complement his skills?
Well, I think the thing with when you look at Jalen and Leighton went through some injuries. It's the question that everybody keeps wanting to ask. Is he the Mike? Is he the Will? When I look at Leighton and Jalen, I look at linebackers that have the ability and the experience to be interchangeable. So, what I like about Jalen is, he practices every day. I mean, he's 100 mile an hour, and he gives it to you, at work after, in the study part of it. He lines up and plays every week. So I thought he had a very productive year. I think at times, like, coaches and players, there was some, wasn't quite clear. Our timing wasn't quite what we wanted it to be. I think that just comes with, with the process of a new staff and new scheme and some of the things we're trying to do. But I think clearly when we got, I felt coming out of the Minnesota game and really the Pittsburgh game and, probably about that point where we were starting to play the right way. We were starting to, there's more consistency in our time clock and our fits and how guys were, coming off. The communication was where it needed to be. Yeah, it was disappointing it took that long, but that's just the facts of the matter. So, and if you look at the defense, and which is my number one, emphasis as a head coach, is the turnover ratio. We end up 7th in the league in taking the ball away. So and that was a huge part of our our production down the stretch here. So, it's something we can build off of.
How long did it take you to zero in on Dan Quinn? Was it pretty quick, like you knew that this was gonna be the guy, or did it take a
Well, it
long
had to
time?
be quick just because of the interest in Dan. I've known Dan for, quite some time, and so when the decision was made, it happened, it had to happen fast because, he had a lot of opportunities. So, and, we were fortunate to be able to get that done.
When did he first get on your radar, like in your coaching career? When do you remember a time when you first?
I remember Dan when he was with the Dolphins, and he was with the with the 49ers. Just his reputation as a D-line coach, and then obviously when he went to Seattle, did a great job there. So we've had some battles there, and then frankly down in Atlanta, they beat us in the NFC Championship game in 2016. So have a good history with Dan.
What went into your decision on Aldon Smith to move on from him, and how do you assess where you are right now with the current roster as far as pressuring the quarterback and where you stand there?
Well, first, Aldon Smith, that's still fluid. Yeah, I personally haven't moved on. So, I was in a conversation yesterday about Aldon. So, we'll see how that works out moving forward. But, when you look at our front, it's the ability to, you don't just in general, you really don't want players who can do one thing. If he's just really good at one component of his game, he's got to be, he's probably got to be the best in the business at it. So, and the ability to play a 3 technique, also play a 4 inside shade technique, to go out and play a 5, and Alden can play the 6, he can play the 9. So that's the flexibility that you're looking for. And if the 3 veteran linemen that we signed all have that, also have that capability. So that's when I'll talk about the growth, and we'll talk about 3-4 versus 4-3. The variation of guys to be able to play multiple techniques and have the length, and Alden fits that. So we're still talking there, but that's where you're able to be more game plan specific, and definitely starting with the run defense. So and that's really my view, and what I want to make sure we have more flexibility, more position flexibility in our defensive front.
Joe Witt was with you, I think, in Green Bay. Did you try to bring him here, like, I guess, last year, or was it just circumstance you couldn't get him in?
Well, timing has a lot to do with a lot of things, and as we know, in hiring a staff, and Joe Witt's an outstanding football coach. Joe and I have a long history together, so I was just felt very fortunate for the timing for him, coming out of Atlanta, for him to be part of this. So I think you'll see a different energy and level of expertise back there. Joe's coordinator ready, and frankly, Joe could have been a coordinator here very easily. I'm making that point just to let you know how much I think of him as a coach. So we definitely have a chance to really grow the secondary under Joe's leadership.
Keanu Neal, will his position coach be Joe, or will his position coach be Scott McCarthy?
Well, he'll start off with the linebackers. Obviously his ability to go back and play the safety is evident, but Keanu's an impact player. I think that's an excellent signing for us, and real excited to get him and his fit. And I know Dan and the other Joe, Adden, are all the guys that work with him in Atlanta are all excited to add him to the mix. So I look at him as an impact player.
Mike, you talk about wanting to improve your defense. Is the draft where you're looking to improve your defense there? Do you want to really have your club hone in on that for you?
Well, I think we're making a strong effort to improve the defense, with our free agent signing so far, and definitely the draft, having 10 picks, and we've done well in the rookie free agent pool too. That's another pool of players that we'll focus on. So yeah, I think we'll continue to work. You want to add as many good football players as you possibly can. Obviously offense, defense, but I wouldn't be surprised if we take some defensive players in the draft.
Can you talk about discussions you may have had with Sean Lee and Tyrone Crawford about where they are in their careers and what that's looking like right now?
Tyrone just, he came to me right away, in the exit interview process, and he's well, should I address this now, or I'm sorry? Well, yeah. Well, I guess I did. I'm sorry. I think he's going to retire. So, but he's going to be here in the area. He lives right down the road, and I've actually seen him a couple times since. So, But, Sean, we're still in discussions with Sean.
What's the plan for the draft this year, Coach? You were on a yacht last year. What's the plan for the draft this year? Oh, I'm sorry, the Jones family. Now that we are having more interaction, what do you anticipate the draft process looking like this year?
My understanding is going to be back to normal. From the coach's perspective, I don't know exactly how what the media operation is going to be. So we'll be in the draft room. So
No consideration for the yacht.
I'll tell you what, it worked out pretty good, and we don't have to take that up. I like the way the draft went last year. So if that was the key, then we'll see what Jerry thinks.
You and other coaches talk a lot about separating the business side of things, but how much of a difference does it make to have the Dak thing done, to just kind of push that aside and move forward?
Definitely. I think like anything, it's everyone here covered it. So it's, I just one morning, I think the best example is one morning in the training room, and there's two TVs on, and the one TV, it was all about Dak Prescott, and the other TV was the four squares, and the Zoom call with the cat in the right-hand corner. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So, and everybody was watching the cat because they were tired of watching the other TV. So I think that's a great analogy. So we're all glad it's done. I didn't stick around to find out. I didn't understand what was going on, so I just kept moving.
Mike, most of your recent experience with the draft has been drafting later in the first round, whether it was Green Bay or picking 17th last year. I get that the process probably doesn't change, but is there any added emphasis or importance when you are in the top 10 and have a chance to draft that caliber of player?
Well, I think, stating the obvious, you want to get it right. I think you're definitely when you're picking 10th compared to 26, 27, 28. It's a lot longer night. Back there at 28, 29, 30. But no, I think it's the pool of players. And there's usually more movement up there potentially. So I think just picking 10 is different than 20 because there's more time to watch what's going on in front of you, and in some years there's more movement than others. So, but yeah, I would say that the process is, I've been part of one staff that picked one. So it's, yeah, I think it's the focus is clearly you still want to get it right and get the best player to fit your football team.
How do you guys determine who's going to go on your staff to what pro days? And because I think from afar we kind of read into it like, oh, Mike McCarthy's at this pro day, they must really be interested in these guys and that. So how do you guys determine?
That's why we're doing it. Yeah. So no, there's a lot that goes into it. It's other things going on, because me going to Alabama and South Carolina and going to Virginia Tech, or am I going to go to Ohio State, Kentucky? So it's fluid, and it's really this year's just so different than any of the others because you don't have the combine. It's really trying to get the right number of touches on each player as you can, and it's not as much about what set of eyes. Is it good for me and Dan to go, or is it better for Will and Dan to go? Plus there are other things that are going on here the last couple of days. So I wouldn't put a tremendous amount into it, but I'm not also naive to the fact that this year is different because you do want to this is your only chance to really get a live look at these guys. So yeah, you could probably put more into it this year than others, to be honest. But on our particular instance, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think it's going to factor in, who's picked at number 10 if that's what you're looking for.
The NFL outlines, I think we leave a memo to this effect today, was they outlined up to 10 fully vaccinated people can be in the draft room. So I asked.
It came out today?
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. This is a first. I'll just say that. I haven't seen the email yet. Is my point. But go ahead. You've seen it already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well.
But I'll forward it.
Yeah. Rich, it should have been on my notes. Yeah. So.
So I asked,
okay.
Are you fully vaccinated? And if not, do you plan to be before the draft to allow you to be in the?
Well, let me ask you, what is my legal right on vaccination?
Your legal right?
Yeah, do I have to tell you if I'm vaccinated? Nope. Okay, so I'll keep you guessing.
Would you like to go to Oxnard, and how optimistic are you that it'll happen?
I'll tell you what, I think I'm totally brainwashed, because anytime I talk to Rich or anybody else, Oxnard is the greatest place in the world. I mean, I don't know how we can survive without going to Oxnard, from what I've been told. But yeah, you know, I've coached in Louisiana. I've coached at the Saints. I clearly understand that, you know, the effect of the heat on the training your football team. You know, I think my understanding, you know, I've spent a lot of time in Austin in the past, so I think we definitely, we're fortunate that the heat wasn't as bad this past summer here. So preferably I would just, you know, I think regularity is important, you know, I think, but yeah, I think there's clearly a benefit going to Oxford, and it's clearly the environment. If you can set the environment, I haven't been there yet, so I'm kind of just speaking off of what I've been told, because actually I was supposed to go there last year, and that's exactly when the pandemic hit. So, but yeah, if it's everything everybody says it is, I'm looking forward to it. So, but you know, the biggest thing is, for me, is the training of the football team. So, as long as everything is the ability to get the flow and the competitive environment and all those things, you know, but, you know, just like, for example, we were just talking about this the other day, you know, you can't practice till 11 a.m. because of the dew on the field. Okay, well, no one thought of that, because I guess they never practiced before 11 in the past. So, and if you were, you know, in our practices, now I know everybody loved getting up early to get to practice early, but there is a benefit from practicing early for the regularity and training of your team. Just from a practice at night, a practice in the middle of the day, a practice in the morning. I think once the players have done all three, they'll tell you the morning's the best. At first, you're like, well, I don't know if I can do that, but it's better for their bodies. It's better on their clock to put them on. The teaching progressions are efficient. So those are the kinds of things I look at. But, you know, being you know, I don't know, is it a mile from the beach or whatever? I guess that's all cool too. So.
Do you plan to travel before July to Oxnard and get a feel for it again?
Yeah, yes, I do. Yeah, I clearly want to get out there and take a look at it. So.
Is that your plan about when you?
No, it's not yet.
Mike, one of the debates in Cowboy Nation is the offensive line. Does it need to be revamped? Who are the 5 guys? Can you give us any idea of what you're thinking about your line for this season?
Well, I think if you just look at the experience that we went through last year, I mean, I've learned this in 2000 as the offensive coordinator for the Saints. When your starting offensive line lines up and plays 16 games in a row, you're a good football team. And it's no different, because like that year, both our O-line and D-line played every game. Now, we had massive injuries around it, but they give you the consistency and the stability to when the line of scrimmage is stable and there's consistency there, your opportunity for success is heightened around it. That's just my belief. So statistically, if you look it up, the health of the offensive line in accordance with the wins and losses of the teams that definitely reflect. I mean, they coincide. So the answer to your question, we just got to get healthy, frankly, on the offensive line. I mean, if we, you know, our veteran tackles look good. So I'm looking forward to lining up and play with those guys. I mean, that's one of the big attractions of the job, frankly, you know, a year and a half ago. So, and you can't have enough, you know, that's, you know, and we felt like we had really good numbers coming in this season, you know, when we just hit one of those years where, you know, the tackle position was just under siege with injury. So, you know, frankly, I think we're going to have a very competitive situation for the offensive line. So I can't line them up yet, but when they get healthy, I think you're going to see really good competition there.
And I talked about the challenges of just the virtual aspect. I mean, we've all seen it even with our job. But how important will it be for you and your staff, these free agents, to be able to go out to dinners together again, to be able to do the team bonding? How much does that help a team in terms of success? Just in the wide receiver room, the offensive line room, you as a coach communicating with some of your captains?
Group dynamics is important. You know, the development of the chemistry and the culture, that's the how, you know, that's the what. You know, everybody talks about it. I think everybody has a plan to try to exercise and develop it, you know, and that's definitely a vehicle to get that done. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. I go back to my first year as a head coach. You know, you grow up in this league, and you know, you have the traditional Saturday night meetings. You know, you get to the hotel, and you have the 7 o'clock quarterback meeting. Then you have the 8 o'clock offensive meeting, and then the team meeting. And you know, after about week 5, you're just, man, it's, you know, the night before the game gets to be a little long. So, and I can just remember the reaction to the team when I told them there was no Saturday night meetings. But no, I moved the meetings till Saturday morning, but we still got our work done. But you know, I think there's a part of that, and when you play for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's a little bit the same in Green Bay, home games are a challenge because everybody wants to come to AT&T Stadium. Everybody wants to visit Dallas. You know, everybody. You can see it in your opponent when they come out of the tunnel. I mean, they're playing the Dallas Cowboys. Well, there's stress there on your players. I mean, there really is. You know, family, and it's not bad stress. But it's responsibility that's different. And so I've always felt when you go on the road, and obviously didn't have it this year, but we always, you know, promoted, hey, running backs, go to dinner together. You know, when we landed, you know, the old schedule, they'd make the window so tight because you were trying to keep your guys at the hotel. Well, guess what? They're still going to leave and go see their Uncle Jimmy, you know, and have a sandwich with them or something. You know, so I'm a believer that when you give them the block of time to go, or if a guy wants to go take a nap, or you know, but we always encouraged our players to bond. That was a bonding opportunity, and what I found is the players love the away games. You know, it's easy to play at home. Everybody loves playing at home, and especially playing AT&T Stadium. But you know, I'm confident that I'll have the same response from our team. You know, because you want those guys to, you know, like, you know, we had a running back coach that his group, or his receiver coach, they went to Ruth Chris every Saturday night because they didn't have Ruth Chris in Green Bay. So it was a big deal. And so, you know, I ate the sweet potato pie. But I mean, and that's what they talked about. Those kind of things, you know, I think it's important. But you know, that's just to give you an example, the group dynamics and the opportunity to be together. Those are the things you laugh about. You know, when the games are always the highlights and the plays, and when you're done, or you run into guys that you've coached 10, 15, 20 years ago. But you know, it's always that, hey, you remember that time at Ruth Chris? Oh yeah, I know, I remember that time. So those are things I think really help develop your culture.
Mike, having lost Andy Dalton, what are your thoughts on the backup quarterback position?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a position we'll continue to look at. I mean, it really goes back to the earlier answer on competitive 90-man roster. You definitely want the most important position in my view of football is the quarterback position. You want to have as much competition and talent, young, veteran. We'll just continue to watch that. There's definitely some veterans that we've talked to, and I'm sure would like the opportunity to be here now that our Dak's contract's done, and I think everybody clearly understand what's their room's potentially going to look like.
You mentioned earlier the physical length in some of the defensive players you guys have signed so far. What's the importance of that physical trait of be it a free agent or a player you drafted for him to have length for Dan Quinn's defense?
Well, I think it goes to the answer I had before, with the ability to play multiple techniques, and their ability to play with length, and obviously the temperament and how they play, because at the end of the day, to me, defense is no different than offense. And every game plan that I've ever been a part of offensively, if you want to be heavy in 12 personnel versus your opponent, you don't go into the game with two tight ends, because one play you could be out of 12 and you practice it all week, and you want to take the same approach with defense. If you have a base defense or a variation of base, and you don't want to have one big end on the 48 man or 46. I hope it's still 48 this year. But because then you could be one player potentially out of having the best defensive front for that particular call on the field, and that's where you get to guys probably playing a technique that he hasn't practiced a lot, and he's probably not best suited. And Frank, we ran into a little bit at that last year. So, and that's part of the plan of navigating the injuries that you have every year. I mean, it's part of the game. But when you have it at one position, it's a little bit more of a challenge.
Mike, I know you talked about how you filter during the season personally and professionally, but now that you've had a time to reflect on your first season in Dallas, what did you learn about yourself that you think will most help you in year 2?
I tell you, I mean, adversity, the pressure of adversity and the pressure that the job that I have today, it's truly a privilege. And it's a privilege to be back in the NFL, and I'm just enjoying it. I think when you have a chance to step away, I'm really savoring these moments. It's because I missed it, and there was points last year I thought, what the hell did I come back to? But I'm just, it's really just a privilege to stand here in front of you and get ready to build a team that can contend for a championship. So just the privilege of the pressure of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mike, appreciate it.